What's up everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, I have 5 encounters from my home country of Canada. If that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. I don't have any stories of my own, but there is the story that my friend told me that happened to him a few years ago. I think it was 2012. So, my friend was drunk. It was 5 a.m. He went out quadding alone on some dirt roads, way out in Alberta. Suddenly he sees a lady in a whitish dress walk out of the woods. He slows down and drives up to her. He says, "Hey, are you alright?" She doesn't reply at first. He asks again. It takes a few seconds for her to reply. She says that she's fine, and then asks if she could ride down the road with him. He says, yeah, okay, sure. He's feeling very uneasy, but he gives the lady a ride anyways. He tells her to get on back and to hold on. And right from the get-go, he felt like there was something wrong. She grabbed onto the back of his sweater, which he could feel, but the weight didn't change on the back of the four-wheeler. He started driving and waiting for the lady to tell him when to stop. 10 minutes go by. He can still feel her holding on. He stops the quad to turn around and ask where exactly down the road she wants to go. Suddenly, she's gone. He got off the quad and looked around, all through the forest and everything, off the trail, but she was just gone. He got really creeped out, and he just decided to go home after that. I worked at a Christian camp in the Muskoka region for a number of summers. One summer, probably 2012, 2013, shit got weird. There's a few older staff in their late 20s to early 40s that would wander the camp at night with flashlights to kind of make sure that the campers weren't screwing around or that animals weren't messing stuff up. From my understanding, they've never really come across anything more than just that. That summer though, everything went weird. I remember there was a lot of weird little things that I can't quite remember. The one big thing that really screwed up all the staff was that a group of 3 staff, not jackass staff like some of them, these were senior staff, they saw a group of 6 entities, all in black. This was a 3-minute walk past the farthest north chalet. They weren't called cabins at our camp. They came back and told some of the older staff who had doubled up on the nightly patrol. And after this, there were more sightings by campers, by other staff. The thing is, the campers were never really informed as to what was going on. After that, in the evenings for the next couple of weeks, these things were sighted in the forest surrounding the camp, but never actually entering the property. They began to make the campers go to the bathroom in the night with staff members or other campers, especially if they were in the older sections. Most of the younger staff, 16 to 17, weren't even told what was going on, but they were told to stay out of the woods and not to travel alone in the evenings. Something I found a little strange was that all the older staff who were in their 30s and 40s, there were only a few of them. Some of them were missionaries, pastors, or even just ones that had been to seminary, began kind of practicing the cultish, for a lack of a better word, side of Christianity. Stuff like walking around the perimeter of the camp while reciting prayer or holding prayer circles in different parts of the camp, burning incense around the woods. Personally, I never saw anything super strange, but I saw how horrified and frantic everyone who did see these things was. So I can't blame them for trying to do whatever they were doing. So I had a relative that used to live way up in the far north. The only thing that was even relatively close to him was a native reserve that had a very small population. Really, the only reason why there's anybody up here at all is because it's very lucrative for trapping. This cabin that I'm speaking of sits over a small lake with an island. Also, there are 2 uninhabitable cabins beside it. Over time, my relative gets very old and passes away. After this, we decided to still make the trip in his honor, and we did it in the middle of the winter, just like he would do. Of course, it was extremely cold. It took hours just to get to the cabin. It was dark as hell when we got there. When there was nobody there, we always boarded up the cabin. We would need a screwdriver just to get the plywood off the door. But when we get there, it's already taken off, but the doors are still locked. Our first thought was that somebody snuck in or broke in to try and go through the cabin. It's happened before on more than one occasion, but everything seems to be in its place. The couch is a little scratched up, and there's a bunch of canned food that has teeth marks in it. It smells a bit like rotten meat, but there was also a good bit of spoiled food. It looks kind of like a bear did it, and someone just seems to forgot to board it up. Our working theory was that a hungry bear had simply tore off the plywood, and after it had broken through the door, after it left, the wind, which is very high this time of year, just blew the door shut. After cleaning up a bit, we of course didn't lose much sleep about it because we were rationalizing the situation, and we thought that we had it all figured out. So we sleep well. The next day, one of the other cabins now has an open door, but I couldn't quite remember if it was open before because it was at night when we got there, and we didn't really look around or didn't think to look. After seeing that the other door was open, we began to think that somebody was trying to squat up here, but the cabin didn't look lived in. It just looked like that somebody ransacked it a bit. And weirdly enough, there were no tracks in the snow to the cabin or away. This told us that it must have been open for a while. Later on that day, we decided to go fishing on the lake. After some time, a thick fog settles in. For a while, I thought this was cool. We all did, so we kept fishing and taking pictures. It was very silent besides the other people at the cabin, and being out there kind of felt like a horror movie, like something's in the fog type of thing. At some point, I can't quite pinpoint when, but I catch a whiff of rotten food again. I was thinking that it could be the bait, but minnows don't usually stink like that. I pay no mind to this and keep fishing. Eventually the fog settles out, and something catches my eye. Either wolves or very large coyotes are running out of the island. It's too far to tell. I was wondering first if they were running toward me or away from me, so I started packing up my fishing gear to go to the cabin because I've been chased by hungry coyotes the previous winter, and it's not fun. I quickly realize that they aren't coming toward me though. They're running away from the island, not trying to attack me. And then suddenly I hear a screech. It sounded almost like a fox, but more like something had heard a fox and was trying to repeat the noise. It was much louder, and it really filled the air. And then it echoes on both sides of the lake. I couldn't tell exactly where it came from, but if I had to guess, I guess it was the island. I drop everything and start running to the cabin. My dad's already outside and started up a skidoo to find me. He asks me why I screamed. I tell him it wasn't me, but I couldn't pinpoint where it came from. He seems very upset at this and tells me that I better not be lying to him and keeps insisting that it was me. I was very irritated, but I brushed it off as that it just spooked all of us. We go inside and explore some cut lines with the skidoos. So far, besides the screams, nothing strange happens. We have a couple of drinks and call it a night. I don't sleep as well, but we're going home the next day, so it's fine. Then, at some point in the night, the smell of rotten meat wakes me up again. I needed to get out of the cabin. It was that bad. Everyone else was still asleep. I decided to take my camera and go fishing. I go outside and try to head to the lake, but then I stop dead in my tracks. Someone is fishing. They're in all black snow gear, I can't see their face. They keep swaying back and forth, or twitching. I don't know how to describe it. I take a picture, and I go back inside. As soon as I get in, I decide to look out the window that overlooks the cabin. This person is now looking dead at me through the window. They have a dead, hollow stare, with a mouth that's gaping open. They turn and walk away toward the island, the same place that I heard the scream from. I was very happy to leave that day. Thankfully, nothing strange happened after we packed up and left. I don't know if it was somebody wearing the skin of somebody else, somebody posing as a human, or even just a hermit that had gone mad all the way up here by himself. Either way, this is the picture of him. So as I'm typing this, there's a huge thunderstorm going on, so I feel like it's perfect conditions for me to relay this really bizarre and scary story that happened to me. It takes place way back when I was 19. I was a broke college student in Canada, so I decided to try and find a job. I ended up finding something as a door knocker for a lawn care company. Basically, I was a door-to-door salesman that didn't actually sell anything. Anyways, it was my Friday shift, so I was working pretty late. I was in the neighborhood on the opposite side of the dog park that was next to mine. Now, this dog park was surrounded by a huge forest. The northern edge of this forest was across the highway from my property, but since there wasn't a highway on this side of the park, the forest just goes right across the street, a good 4 or 5 yards away from me. Now, 4 or 5 yards doesn't really sound like a whole lot, but when you're also 4 to 5 yards away from something spooky, it seems like even less. So by this time, the night was actually going pretty good. I had 5 leads so far. And I was walking down a long driveway from a house that I just got rejected at. Suddenly, I see a shape in the forest. I just assumed that it was a coyote, as those are pretty common in this area, and from what I saw, it was just about the right size. I still decide to be cautious because it is a wild animal after all. I decide to pick up the pace between the houses. I do about 5 more houses, and I see that thing again. From this glimpse, the thing looks a bit too big to be a coyote. It was long, and it had a bony spine that seemed to poke out of its neck. I thought, alright, maybe it's just a long, mutated, starving coyote. Or maybe even a stray dog. I hear this odd gurgling sound coming from the woods though. At this point, I'm really freaking out. I'm pretty much booking it in between the houses. I had like 20 more houses to do on that street, and I knew my supervisor would tell me that I was BSing her. I was on my last 5 houses, and by this point, I hadn't seen the thing again, so I just assumed that it left me alone to eat some easier prey, or whatever. I was finally beginning to feel safe again. I know, what a moron, right? I finished the houses that I'm supposed to do. I have no new leads. I message my boss on the work tablet, telling her that I'm done. I look at the time, and I realize that it's 10 o'clock at night, and then I realize, no wonder why no one wanted to talk to me. It's so late. I sit down on the cold, soggy sidewalk. I was playing an emulator on my phone, probably Fire Emblem or something, and then I can hear something, distant mumbling. I just assumed that it was one of my workmates. I didn't even look up from my phone. I say, "Hey man, I've already got this street finished. Do you happen to know how far away Chelsea is?" I know that's really dumb, but hey, I was also just a stupid kid. I thought, who else would be out here at night? The mumbling stops, and I start to hear rustling from the forest. My native blood finally kicks in, and I realize, finally, that something's not right. Like a dumbass, I yell out, "Is anyone there?" Of course, I get no reply. I point my weak-ass phone flashlight into the woods, and what do I see but a pair of eyes looking back at me? I just assume that this dog thing is back because there's no way that that's the thing that could be doing the muttering. I don't know why, but I turned off my flashlight and just went back to playing Fire Emblem. But then the mumbling starts again. It's definitely coming from the woods. I finally hear something audible, and it's the exact sentence that I had just said out loud a few minutes ago. "Hey man, I've already finished this street. Do you happen to know how far away Chelsea is?" It sounded almost exactly like me, but slightly off somehow. It was all garbled and sounded screwed up sounding, if you know what I mean. At this point, I wanted to get the hell out of there, but these woods go on for another couple blocks, and this is probably the most well-lit area. I frantically text Chelsea, my supervisor, and ask how far away she is. She's driving, so of course I don't get a reply back. I decide to stand up and move a little closer to the house. It's a pretty rural area, so the houses are kind of far apart. Usually, I would worry about the homeowner getting mad at me for standing on their property, but this was an exception. And then, "Is anybody there?" comes out of the woods in the same messed up voice that kind of sounds like me. I tactically shit myself and move closer to the house. Then, I start hearing what sounds like a distorted version of a bird call. I get thinking, what even is this thing? It's not a dog. I know at this point that it's not somebody messing with me. My ride finally shows up. My only thought was, my God, Chelsea, why are you parked so close to the woods? I run to the van and jump in the back. I make the mistake of looking out into the woods while I was doing so. I finally get a decent look at the thing that's been harassing me all night. It looks like a bipedal dog with matted, slimy-looking black fur. I swear to God, this is the part that still gives me chills. The thing smiles and waves at me. It smiled and waved. I tell Chelsea to haul ass out of there. She gives me a weird look, but still says okay. I don't talk about what I saw. I tell my boss that I'm quitting as soon as I get back. Well, that's the end of the only supernatural thing that's ever happened to me. I have never seen anything since, and I'm more than glad that there's a huge-ass highway between me and that forest. This was probably the only time that I'm ever going to write this story down, but here it is. In 2016, I decided to take up hunting, so I'm curious to know if anyone else, hunter or not, has any odd experiences that they want to share. I have a couple, but this is the scariest one I have. Scary is maybe the wrong word. Strange, odd, creepy even. So like I said, by this point, I had been a hunter for 2 years, and I got seriously addicted to everything about it within the first couple of months of even going out into the woods. My brother and I decided to buy this cabin in northern Ontario. It had been abandoned for quite a while. We got it cheap off the owners. They said that they were the nephews of the man who originally owned it, was quite a recluse, and apparently quite crazy. They said that he had guns and ammo stashed throughout the house, and he found a journal with odd anecdotes inside. They notified pretty much everyone in the area that the property may be, quote, cursed, which, if this already doesn't sound like a Scooby-Doo thing, then that scared off most people, so we bought it since it was very cheap. It had power and water, so to us, the story didn't match the price. We clean the place out, we throw out a lot of the guy's old junk, and we find a whole bunch of weird stuff. Small whittlings of demonic creatures hiding behind trees and rocks. The carvings were actually very nice and very well done, but they were very creepy. My brother yells to me that he found a journal with only a few entries. It was one of those small personal number books. It talked about the creatures that hide in the bush. It talked about how to find them and how to see them. Being an internet user, especially on the darker corners, we almost thought this was funny because it sounded like the schizo ramblings that we see on forums that we visit. The man seemed to be clearly eating wild mushrooms and hallucinating. After we cleaned out and had a good night's sleep, we decided to go for some partridge hunting. The property, though nice, isn't that large, so me and my brother go our separate ways, and we have a whistle and a radio to notify each other. I remember walking out maybe 40 feet from the cabin, and I took a seat to make some calls and watch for any kind of movement. I saw one moose, no tag, and I watched it for a bit before something startled it and it ran off. I remember it very clearly. I didn't move, so it must have smelled me or something. All of a sudden, I hear a whistle, so either my brother is lost, in trouble, or he's found something. So I got up to hurry over. We began to whistle back and forth until we eventually could see each other, and we met up. Instantly, I see that his face is pale as a sheet, and he has beads of sweat on his forehead. I jokingly ask, "What did you see, a Sasquatch?" He first just stared at me, quietly. This is very unlike him at all. He's a total loudmouth. He starts to say, in a broken voice, that he was sitting quietly, looking around when he saw a moose. I said, "Oh really, I did too. It ran off." He said, "Yeah, mine did too." But when it ran, I looked over to my right because I had a very bad feeling, and I noticed something. A dark figure with a very odd face was peeking at me from behind a tree. I fell off my tree stump and instantly called you. I'm freaked out, man. He just says, "I need to get out of here." So I'll admit, I thought that he had a momentary lapse in judgment. I thought that it was crazy and that he may have saw something else. It was just the forest playing tricks on him. But my brother isn't a liar, and he doesn't really make up things like this, or at least he never had before. So we get back to the cabin, and we unpack. My brother says that the feeling is still there, that he wants to leave. I argued that we didn't buy this place to sell it within a night of staying here. We argued, and we settled with a couple of pints. We decide to just stay back and rest the rest of the day. Nightfall came, and we were in our rooms. I got in bed, and I was ready to sleep. It was lightly sprinkling outside, so it was very calming to hear the rain hit the tin roof. I was sleepless, yet extremely tired. I started to look around the room. It was very faintly lit. All of a sudden, I see a dark shadow move across my window. I got nervous because of my brother's story. I decided that I should look. I peeked through the window for a bit, but I didn't see anything. When I walked back to my bed, I jumped and rolled into it. As I was pulling the blankets over, I peeked back at the window, and I saw a face peering at me. It was demonic looking. I was struck cold, still thinking that maybe it's just a hallucination. But then, it started to slowly tilt its head to the left and kind of smile. I nearly fainted. I jumped out of bed and screamed for my brother. We sat up in the living room until morning. The sun broke, and we just left. So of course, let me know what you think happened in all of these. What do you think was going on at the camp in Muskoka? What do you think was going on in northern Ontario on the hunting trip? And what do you think about what happened way up in northern Canada, or what was seen in Ontario? As always, if you enjoyed this video or videos like this, please like and subscribe. I post 3 times a week. And if you want to support the channel, there's a new hype feature on YouTube, and I've mentioned it many times before, but if you have it and you want to hype the video or any one of my videos, I would be very grateful for it. And I believe it's free. So, if you would like to donate to the channel in some other way, then I have links in the description, and there are memberships and super thanks here on YouTube. So, as always, I hope you have a good week. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope to see you for the next video. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching.